So therefore, in that sense, it does make a difference whether, and this is an exciting election in that particular sense, if the MHP passes the threshold, then our constitutional negotiations are going to be genuine. For me, it is much more important to have, a broad-based, consensual drafting of the Constitution than a unilateral drafting of the Constitution, no matter how wonderful that Constitution might be. So, on the domestic agenda, therefore, the Constitution occupies the first place, along with, of course, Turkey's still simmering Kurdish problem. And the Kurdish problem has, of course, at least two components. One component is the fight, the military fight against the PKK, which is located in northern Iraq on the Kandil Mountains. And the second aspect of it, of course, is the civil aspect of it, the civil political aspect of it, and that is how do we renegotiate, if you will, how we define citizenship in the country, and thereby have the Kurds feel that they are equal citizens, since at least Kurdish nationalists don't think they have been treated in an egalitarian way since the beginnings of the republic. And of course, there is a very delicate balance there, because obviously violence is used in order to secure the future of those who are in the mountains and who need to have a sense of what their future is going to look like, and they use violence in order to gain some ground on their negotiations. But the more violence there is, the more difficult it becomes to deal with the Kurdish issue within the political space. Therefore, it is not going to be an easy thing to do. We know from other experiences that in the English terminology, the decommissioning of the fighters, or the demilitarization of the conflict and the disarming of those who are in the mountain is going to be a very delicate affair, and all those will have to be run in parallel with the search for a proper solution for the Kurdish issue. And of course, the constitution, drafting of the constitution also becomes critical, because obviously one of the most important elements in the new constitution is going to be how we define citizenship, and whether or not Turkishness is going to be defined in such a way whereby it cannot be seen only as an ethnic definition of citizenship. And I think this also goes to not just in terms of the ethnic composition of the country, but also in terms of the sectarian composition of the country as well. ASAF Savaş will speak about economic measures, so I don't really have to get into that. And then we will obviously be, all of those things will also be happening under the shadow of a presidential contest that we're likely to have. It is one of our, how shall I say, intriguing things that we still don't know when we're going to have the presidential election. Now you may wonder, why is that important? Because throughout the history of the Turkish Republic, the president of the republic, and the presidency was supposed to be a ceremonial post mainly. The president of the republic has been elected by the parliament. When in 2007 the military tried to block the candidacy of our current president, Mr. Gül, and we had to hold early elections, and then he got elected, the government also put a constitutional amendment to a referendum. And in the referendum, 68% of the Turks voted in favor of a system whereby we will be electing from now on our president through popular vote. And of course, in a parliamentary system, electing the prime minister with a popular vote and then electing the president with a popular vote, given the fact that our constitution was prepared with the generals in mind back in 1982, and the powers of the presidency went beyond the ceremonial ones, obviously there's going to be clashes of power and authority between the prime minister and the president, and obviously the new constitution is going to arrange that distribution of power as well. And so the current president has been elected for 7 years, and whether his term is going to end in 2012, because the constitutional referendum back in 2007 also changed the terms of the president and made it 2 5-term terms rather than 1 single 7-year term. And the government has not yet showed its true colors on whether it thinks the current president's period expires in 2012 or if it expires in 2014. We also know from the declarations of our own Prime Minister that he cherishes the idea of a presidential system, and I suppose he would like to see himself as the President of the Republic in that changed system with a presidential weight. Okay. Again, so I come back to my initial point. If the AKP could draft the constitution by itself, it is expected that they would go for a presidential system, and Mr. Erdogan, I guess, would be elected president, or that would be the plan. Not having constitutional majority means it will be a lot more difficult to convince the parliament that we should move towards a presidential system, and then that changes, if you will, all the political plans. Finally, the final item on the agenda, and in that I'm being a bit speculative. As you know, for the last 4 years, we have had a judiciary process against a so-called Gladio-type secretive organization within our state security system, which implicated many journalists, commissioned or retired officers and others in plotting coups against the legitimate government of the country. The so-called Ergenekon case, joined by the Balyoz case, Orash case, and God knows what other cases. And these trials have now reached a point whereby the incarceration of the convicts has gone on for, in some cases, for 4 years with no result in sight for the trials. This is beginning to get to put a stain on the process itself. So I really expect that perhaps the process is going to be moving a bit faster, but it is certainly going to be an item on the agenda. My final slide is on foreign policy. One of the, it must be my age too, but one of the refrains I have these days about political commentary is that Nescafe expertise is now very fashionable. Meaning, people who would not know the place of Turkey on the map can appear suddenly as experts on Turkey. Or it's experts on any country, by the way, all right? And I understand you have a lot of visitors from abroad, economists coming and telling you, well, I'm not really an expert on this, but this is what you should be doing. When the Arab revolts started, the first reaction was, my God, will they emulate Turkey? You know, Islamic Party in power, democracy still continues, you know, Muslim Brotherhood. Can Turkey be a model? Then, that was during Tunisia and Egypt, and then we had Libya and Syria, and suddenly Turkey didn't seem to be so sure of its own footing, in Libya in particular, but in Syria as well, and then we had seen titles such as Arab Spring, Turkish Fall. I think both positions are too spontaneous and, in my judgment, too exaggerated.